For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is May 6, 2025. It is 10:08 a.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Fios Channel 964. The Council's budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. 1, attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at the beginning of each departmental hearing, and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. You can give testimony in person here in the chamber or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. It will be taken at the beginning of this hearing following the panelist presentation. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov or by emailing Karishma Chauhan at boston.gov. That is KARISHMA.CHOUHAN at boston.gov. You will receive the Zoom link and your name will be added to the list. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. The second way you can testify is email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. And the third way you can testify is submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on our website. For more information on the City Council budget process and how to testify, please visit the City Council's budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on dockets number 0822 through 0830 and docket number 0837. The FY26 budget for the Boston Centers for Youth and Families, the Office of Early Childhood, and the BCYF Revolving Fund. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 9, 2025. I would now like to turn it over to today's panelists to introduce themselves and for their presentation. The floor is now yours.
Good morning, I'm Kristen McQuaid. I'm a Senior Advisor to the Mayor for Early Childhood and the Director of the Office of Early Childhood.
How you doing? My name's Edward McGuire. I'm the Director of Operations for Boston Centers and Youth and Family.
Good morning, Councilor. My name is Marta Rivera. I'm the Commissioner of the Boston Centers for Youth and Families.
Thanks.
Presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Start with you. This is working. Excellent. Thank you. So thank you, Councilor Worrell. I appreciate the opportunity to present BCYF's FY26 budget. Good morning. I am honored to be here today as the Commissioner of Boston Centers for Youth and Families. I want to thank Mayor Wu for her unwavering support of BCYF and Chief Jose Masso, the Chief of Human Services, whose deep connection to our mission rooted in his own participation in Boston Centers for Youth and Families is invaluable. Equally important is the support of his Deputy Chief, Lisa Conley, and the entire Office of Human Services staff. I also want to acknowledge that in addition to Eddie McGuire, our Director of Operations, we also have our Director of Communications, Sandy Holden, our Director of Administration and Finance, Naida Faria, and our Chief of Staff, Annie Chin, in the audience. For those that are unfamiliar, BCYF is the City of Boston's largest human service department. Our mission is to strengthen Boston youth and families in their pursuit of success through meaningful relationships, essential programs, and vital community resources. Furthermore, BCYF is committed to ensuring that everyone has equitable access to facilities, staff, quality programs we provide to the community, especially those who experience barriers to success in our communities. BCYF has nearly 400, I apologize, it says 300. We have nearly 400 employees operating 36 facilities citywide, including 18 pools and a beach. Notably, 14 of our centers are located within Boston Public School buildings, and we also have 2 senior centers, or centers that are dedicated to seniors. We currently have 87,000 registered members who visit our centers, and our programs the number of visits to our centers exceeds 800,000 this past year. I encourage you to explore our interactive map on our website for the detailed information about each of the facility offerings. BCYF staff are as diverse as the communities we serve. Over 60% of our employees are BIPOC, and BIPOC staff comprise over 60% of the top 10 salaries in our department. We are also majority female staff, with over 60% of our staff being female. BCYF's spaces serve as hubs of neighborhoods across the city and meet community needs beyond the programmings we offer. They are also serve as election locations, cooling centers, heating centers, emergency shelters, and gym facilities for schools that don't have gymnasiums, as well as pool access to those that don't have pools. The BCYF team is committed to ensuring consistent quality in both our own program offerings and in programs we provide through partnerships. We aim to make our offerings user-friendly, accessible, and welcoming everywhere. As you can see from the data we're sharing here, basically what we want to show is that our program offerings continues to grow. Our work at BCYF is strategically driven by key priorities identified through a comprehensive departmental planning process in 2019. We developed a multi-year plan that concludes in 2025. Over the past couple of years, our efforts have been focused primarily on 3 of 5 strategic priorities that were identified through that process. The 3 are investing in BCYF's capital assets, essentially our facilities, building and resourcing a system-wide human capital strategy, essentially investing in our staff, providing high-quality, responsive, and excellent services across all our centers, essentially, again, prioritizing not just the excellence, but equity across our sites. The complex and locally responsive BCYF system juggles many competing priorities and demands. In addition to our regular programming, various agencies, including other city departments, frequently seek access to our spaces, staff, and sometimes resources. Some of the requests include piloting a program with our colleagues in the Office of Early Childhood at Paris Street, a pilot program for toddlers, hosting Project Oscar bins through a number of our sites, hosting a number of animal control, rabies, and vaccination clinics, and those are hugely popular and they usually max out, hosting flu and COVID vaccine clinics in partnership with the Boston Public Health Commission. We do that throughout the year, but we focus also in the fall during peak season. And offering extended mental health services in collaboration with the Franciscan Children's Hospital and the Boston Public Health Commission. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to share some of our accomplishments this fiscal year. Working with property management and the Public Facilities Department, we launched the Facilities Condition Assessment this year. The assessment will inform a comprehensive plan to better anticipate needed capital investments and plan for regular maintenance rather than just responsive maintenance. So it'll prevent sudden closures and the need for emergency repairs. We reopened the Clarity Pool in Charlestown, the BCYF Johnson Community Center in Mission Hill, and most recently, the Draper Pool in West Roxbury. All of these facilities are providing much-needed programming opportunities. We're nearing the final stages of our new community center in Dorchester and Grove Hall. The design phase is wrapping up. We recently, or within the last several months, launched the design process for the new North End Community Center. After a successful relaunch of BCYF Academy, a professional development conference for all BCYF staff, We've continued to offer many professional development opportunities, including having our staff trained by the Health Resources in Action. They participated in Best Positive Youth Development Training, CPR First Aid, Psychological First Aid. We also participated in the Boston Public Health Commission's 15-month collaborative cohort that was hosted to develop trauma-informed and equitable policy and practice for BCYF. We have certified our athletic directors to teach senior fitness, certified staff as referees. Our aquatic staff have WSI, which is essentially a certification that allows them to teach, not just teach swimming classes and lessons, not just lifeguard. They're also certified in adaptive swim. Our athletic staff were trained in volleyball by the Wentworth team. We also have provided management training that was provided by Life Learning to our management staff, DEI training with the Equity Cabinet, and recently with Do It, Google Suites training. So all that to emphasize the important and how committed we are to, again, enhancing, improving, and continuing to develop the skills of our staff. We believe that investing in our staff improves morale, and it is ultimately an investment in our services to the Boston residents. I want to thank our staff at this time for all their hard work. I'm proud to announce that a significant majority, over 75% of our recent center management openings or open positions have been filled by internal, hardworking, and diverse individuals who have eagerly embraced this opportunity to continue to serve the Boston residents. And that, by the way, is something that's unprecedented at BCYF. We don't usually have leadership positions become vacant. Center directors, program supervisors, they stay with us till they retire. So again, 75% of those recent vacancies of center director positions have been filled internally. We continue to expand youth sports programs, through the Let's Play Boston initiative. This is the initiative that was formerly known as the Mayor Youth Sports Initiative. We implemented a fall developmental basketball league through this initiative, including 25 boys teams, 20 girls teams, giving 500 youth the opportunity to learn and play basketball at the developmental level. In the winter, we created a futsal league, which included 13 boys teams, 13 girls teams, and 11 co-ed teams. And this spring, we are in the midst of our volleyball league, which includes 9 boys teams and 9 girls teams and 15 co-ed teams, providing 350 youth the opportunity to learn and play volleyball. In addition to Let's Play Boston, BCYF partnered with the Parks Department once again to offer the All-Girls Sports Festival, a 3-day opportunity to learn and try out different sports that culminated again for the second year with a summit at UMass Boston, making it the 4th day, so an entire week during the April school vacation week dedicated to girls' sports and increasing their participation. For aquatics, we created a continuum of programming and training that provides us a pipeline for aquatics jobs to help us keep our pool staffed and open. We were able to fill all of our seasonal positions last summer. So again, I repeat, first time in a very, very long time, BCY filled all of its seasonal aquatics positions, that's 68 seasonal positions, in addition to our year-round positions. We offer free training and certification programs, including adaptive swim, invested in bonuses for the 2nd year in a row. We have an expansive marketing campaign that includes billboards and print and online ads. And just in a couple of weeks, a couple of weeks ago, we also held an autism awareness water safety swim. That was an event to expand awareness. And as of now, we're offering sensory swim time at 4 pools every week. In partnership with the City of Boston's Age Strong Commission, BCYF has expanded significantly its programming for older adults to meet the growing demand from increasing number of adults across the city. We aim to reduce senior isolation and to increase opportunities for them to access healthy activities and needed services. 30 BCYF centers currently offer ongoing weekly programming for older adults, more than double last year's 13 centers. BCYF centers provide 1,513 programs for older adults. And I want to thank Chief Masso's leadership at the Human Services Cabinet for their work and partnership with Swim Safe Initiative, which provides funding for free swim lessons at partner agencies across the city. That's contributed greatly to creating access across Boston. Now I'll mention a few of our initiatives for FY26. So I'll try to get through these quickly. So in FY26, we are going to continue to invest and expand programming through the Let's Play Boston. We also continue to expand programming in a variety of other areas, girls programming, toddler programming, in addition to senior programming. Working with Do It, we're expanding access to technology, really emphasizing the need for public access and technology at our centers, and in that, as a result, there's currently a position posted, so it's someone who's going to be focused on the external, access to technology. I believe it's Director of Programming and External Access to Technology. The title escapes me at this time, but essentially it's a partnership with Do It, and this person is going to focus on, again, enhancing our technology at the sites, make sure that programming also matches demand. We're excited to be partnering with the Mayor's Office of Women's Advancement and the nonprofit Mass Now to launch a menstrual equity initiative this year. BCYF will be installing menstrual dispensers in every stall, both women and men's bathrooms, to be inclusive of non-binary and trans community. We will also be providing crucial menstrual equity training for all our staff to foster a more informative and supportive community. And lastly, working with the Office of Human Services and the Mayor's Office, you might have heard this in the Mayor's State of the City. We launched BCYF Creates, which is expanding the availability of high-quality arts programming in BCYF centers. So thank you again for the opportunity to address you today. I know I've shared a lot of information. I look forward to taking your questions, and I will turn it over to my colleague.
Is there something I'm supposed to?
Ethan, I think we're going to the next presentation.
There we go.
There we are. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good morning. I have a brief presentation about the Office of Early Childhood. We do a little bit less than BCYF, but we do a lot with BCYF, so we'll talk about that as well. Our office was established in 2022 to ensure that Boston is first for families and a home for everyone. So we really focus on supporting the well-being of infants, toddlers, and young children under the age of 8 who are growing up in the city of Boston. One of the ways we do that is by focusing on early education and care and making sure that families have access to high quality, affordable care. This year, we have spent our investment on stability and quality. So not just making sure that, as we did in the past, that we have access, but really looking at the stability and quality. We opened, in partnership with the United Way, 34 new family child care centers across all neighborhoods. These are businesses that are owned primarily by women. And they serve, when they first open, 6 young people, but can expand to 10. We also, through the CEF, the Child Care Entrepreneur Fund, provided financial and marketing communications courses to 107 individuals throughout the year. Those courses are provided in cohorts, and they are provided in English and in Spanish. They're also available in the English cohort in translation, in Mandarin, Portuguese, and in French. This year, we also just produced the third annual child care supply and demand report. It looks at all the neighborhoods in Boston, identifies where the children are, identifies where licensed child care is, and really focuses on the gap. We then use that information as we are recruiting in neighborhoods for people to open family child care, as we're working with our child care centers who want to expand, and really thinking about how we can ensure that there is a place and a space for families who need to work and need to have child care in order to do that. Those things are focused on stability. The next couple are really thinking about quality. So what happens in our family child care settings? So the first thing that we've done over the past couple of years is partner with the Boston Public Health Commission. Together, we've trained 74 family child care providers and their assistants in nutrition and movement, really thinking about how we get our young people outside and moving and off screens. As a part of that program, we worked with Mass Audubon to create a farm-to-table curriculum, and are now working with Grow Boston to ensure that all of the family child care providers who've participated in that training will have a growing bed on site so that they and the children can grow together and then build on the nutrition lessons that they've learned. We've also provided training to our providers on ages and stages, which is a developmental screening for young people, on touch points, which is a program that focuses on the interactions between young children and their parents and really supporting parents as they develop. And then the last thing is an endorsement that's really about infant mental health and really focusing on providing resources to families and training for staff. The last thing that we focused on in my next couple of slides, we'll cover this, is producing better communications for families and providers so that they can access our services. So I just talked about all of the different training that we provide through our office. One of the things that we've done, and this is on our website, is developed a family child care roadmap. So it really takes you from, I'm interested in becoming a family child care provider or educator, going through the licensing program. Once I've gotten licensed and begun to get started, what's the financial management that I need in order to have a viable business? A lot of our child care providers come to us with a deep, rich background in early childhood and maybe less in business, so this really gives them the basics. And then from that, the second part of the Child Care Entrepreneur Fund is a focus on marketing and communications. We help them build their own website. We connect that to Great Starts so that people can find them. And so those are sort of, this is how you navigate through, and each of those links on our website will take you to more information. It goes all the way through to, do you want to become part of Boston Pre-K, and how do you do that? So that's really for our providers. On the family side, we've focused on ensuring that people understand how to access all of the early childhood programming that the City of Boston is paying for. This past year, we rebranded Universal Pre-K so that we were really clear that Boston Pre-K is a program. It serves almost 5,000 young people in the City of Boston, and it does so through Boston Public Schools, through community-based organizations, through independent schools, and also through family child care. So hopefully you've seen it around the City of Boston. I saw it the other day when I was driving by the garden. It was very exciting. The last thing that we've done is really focus on access. So our Great Starts platform, which we launched initially 18 months ago, focused on all of the licensed childcare in Boston. But since April 7th, we've now added the ability for families to apply also to Boston Public Schools. So if you go to Great Starts, you can look for childcare, you can look for the schools, and you can apply for Boston Pre-K as well as K-12. That does a couple of things for our families. It streamlines and simplifies the processes. So for example, while in the past, if you asked me how to sign up for school, I would tell you to go to the Welcome Center. I now can tell you to go to Great Starts. You can upload your documents, and they can be reviewed online. So unless there's something that you absolutely need in terms of in-person support, you can do it all virtually. And that way, we're spending the time with the Welcome Center staff really focused on families who need that additional help in order to select their school. As I said, you can find childcare all the way up to 12th grade. It addresses some of the gaps that our families experience across programs, so you can understand how you move from Boston Pre-K into Boston Public Schools. It is multilingual. The platform is currently available in 10 languages. We are adding Cape Verdean Creole, so that's the next one, and that will make it 11. It is also mobile, it's mobile friendly, so that you can actually use your phone. And what we're seeing is about 60% of our families are actually applying by using their phone. The next two things that oops, sorry, I advanced my computer, not yours. The next two things that we are focused on in our office, in October, we launched the Children's Council, which is really focused on aligning 17 different departments at City Hall and across the rest of the City of Boston departments, so that we're thinking about how to meet the needs of youth from birth all the way to 22. And two of the initiatives that we have as part of the council's work, one is Connect, Learn, Explore, which is our commitment to biking, swimming through Swim Safe, playing a sport through Let's Play, learning to bike, and developing a connection with nature. So this year, my office took the lead on biking, working with Bike Boston and BPS. We've expanded our summer biking. This year we had 22 Success Link participants at 7 locations across the city who taught over 750 young people how to bike in our parks and also at 2 of our BCYF centers. We reintroduced the youth cycling program at BPS schools. So this year, all told, we've worked through 13 schools during the school day and provided instruction to a little over 3,000 young people. And then on June 11th, I hope everyone comes to City Hall Plaza to celebrate the International Day of Play. But if you don't make it to City Hall Plaza, 63 of our schools are going to be celebrating the day through play, as well as our BCYF centers and our community health centers. And then we also are working on expanding bike towns. So this past year, we opened a bike town at Moakley Park. As you can see, it is a place for young people, but also adults to, oops, sorry, I did it again, to learn how to put their biking skills into practice. This year, we will be opening 4 more bike towns, one at Ross Playground, one on City Hall Plaza, one at the McKay in East Boston, and one at the Jackson Man in Alston Brighton with the BCYF. The final thing I just wanted to highlight is the work that we're doing at the intersection of extreme heat and young children. In January of 2024, we hosted a 3-part series on the intersection and the impact of heat on young children with the Harvard Center for the Developing Child, the East Boston Social Center, a large number of city departments. And we've come to 3 different pilots that we are going to be working on in the coming year. In partnership with both BCYF and with the Environment Cabinet. The first is really thinking about those cooling stations that Commissioner Rivera mentioned in her comments. They're really great if you have older children. They're a little more challenging if you have an infant or a 2-year-old. And so we're going to be working with the BCYF staff as well as community partners in our heat islands to actually provide them with the Made to Play book that we have that's full of developmental activities that can be done with young children, so that there's some programming that takes place while you're at the community center as well as in the misting tents outside. So really growing on that pilot that we did with Parish Street. The second thing that we're going to be doing is working with our family child care providers and providing them with 2 pieces of information. One about retrofits if they are a homeowner, so they can be working through the Mass Save program and installing a heat pump with air conditioning. And then the second is working with 30 as a pilot to give them heat sensors so they can have an understanding of when it's actually hotter in their child care center than it is outside, so that if their house is actually at the heat emergency temperature, we will have done education together on how to address that, as opposed to just waiting for the declaration from the city. And then the last is infusing early childhood messages into how we're already communicating. What we know from the science is actually the most vulnerable people during heat are pregnant people and infants and toddlers. And so we're working to make sure that in all of our emergency communications, we have messages that are directed for that population. And I am going to leave it there. There is one more slide that you all have in your package. It is about our action plan that we're providing for child care centers and for family child care when they have a heat emergency, as well as a little bit more about the sensors and next steps. But I will leave it there and we can turn to questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I also want to acknowledge that Councilor Santana, Council President Louis Jen, Councilor Fitzgerald, and Councilor Braden has joined us. Now we're going to public testimony. You can testify either in person or via Zoom. If you would like to testify virtually, please sign up in advance using the link below. After you have signed up, you will be provided with the hearing Zoom link. Please make sure you are signed up into Zoom with your full name you signed up with to help us call on you appropriately. If you would like to testify in person, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. If your name is called to testify, please step forward and introduce yourself into the microphone. Participants will be called on in order in which they signed up, and you have 2 minutes to testify. We'll now go to Zoom, where we have Lucia Harris. Lucia, the floor is now yours.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Doing well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, thank you. Good morning to everyone. So hello, my name is Louisa Harris. I am attending this meeting representing Jamaica Plain Neighbors Organization, businesses, youth groups, parents, adults, and those with impairments who have come together to advocate for the reopening of BCYF Hennigan swimming pool and making the sports center accessible to the whole community with programming and hours of operation that align with our community's needs. Thank you for the space and attention you're granting us today. So the sports center can be an excellent community resource to promote social and physical wellness. It should be used in a more consistent way and for a variety of activity to sustain, connect, stimulate, and support the vibrancy of our community. However, it has been overlooked, unfortunately, and disregarded for over 10 years, in spite of the soft or more vocal approach we have tried to in reaching officials. This past April 10th, we held a meeting attended by about 150 people. The goal of the meeting was to clearly state our vision for the center to city officials. And also we have created an online petition, where as of today, more than 250 people have already signed in advocating for the sports center. We have already seen some progress for which we're very grateful. And yet we still have much to accomplish and accomplish together. We feel like we need to really be a part of your efforts to bring this center to be operational. As we appreciate the city's continual support of other neighborhoods' progress and improvement, we are here as a community to request to bring BCYF Hennigan at the top of your priorities. We are also here to offer again our support to overcome obstacles and move forward with new vision for the sports center that aligns and serves our community. We understand that there are some assessments in progress. However, the communication with the community has not been clear so far. So one thing that we look forward to in the immediate future is to have a clear communication about these assessments, whether the capital operational, commitment for next steps and time of completion, and clearly a more direct engagement with the community from city officials.
Thank you, Lucia. Thank you,
thank you.
Lucia. We will now go to councilors for first round of questions, starting with Councilor Santana. Councilor, the floor is now yours.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for chairing this hearing. I really want to thank our panelists for being here. I think I'm going to start with our BCYF centers, and I want to thank our amazing Commissioner Rivera, someone that I've known for a very long time, and I know you're committed to our Boston's youth and all of our families and residents here. So, also really want to thank you and your team for Alice Taylor, Johnson Community Center reopening. That is where, that was my community center growing up, and was very happy to join you all last fall in the reopening of that. And I know that many families, seniors, youth are benefiting from that in the Alice Taylor BHA apartment. So really want to thank you for that. I think my first question is actually just going to, I think continue off what Luisa Harris, who was just testifying. I know that you and I both attended the community meeting just a few weeks ago. I just wanted to have, just general updates on the Hennigan. I know that we've had many residents, including Louisa, advocate for this community center and its improvements. And then I think more general, outside of that specific location, I think, just understanding when situations like this happen, when BCYF centers needs improvements, just want to talk high level in terms of priority, kind of your process, just so that way, not just ourselves here as counselors understand that, but also public understands the internal processes that go within that.
Thank you, Council, for the question. So we have, when I presented, we have 14 facilities, community centers that are located within BPS facilities. And so we work closely with BPS on any improvements, including access to spaces. So unlike our standalone facilities, the actual programmable spaces that we have access to, it's not the entire facility.
Yep.
And at the Hennigan, for instance, our primary spaces that we program are the pool, the gym, we have a teen center, and 3 classrooms. The three classrooms are utilized by a licensed after-school program that's been there for a while, and it's very successful. They serve children as young as 5 through 12. And that's in partnership with the JP Community Centers Council. So all that to say that the actual programmable square footage at the site, it's not a lot, and yet the community center is thriving despite the complaints and the, I think we differ in opinion in terms of what's happening at the center. They offer adult programming, but they do focus on school-age kids and teens as a school-based site. I was looking at their data as Ms. Harris was speaking, and looking back at last year, they had over 25,000 visits to that community center in calendar year 2024. Again, not bad for a site that operates a gym and a pool and a couple of spaces. And it is, they have over 1,200 active members. Within the first quarter of this calendar year alone, they've had 6,700 visits, so 6,700 visits. That's just January, February, March of this year. And they have actually offered over 70 different activities. So I don't think that those are indicators of a site that's not activated. And that's not to mention the activities that we do at the park. The park is obviously Parks Department, but there are activities that we also do at the park. The Hennigan is also unique in that it is the BCYF site that serves the largest African Muslim population, and that is no small feat. It's an underrepresented, served community in Boston, and that is a site that they gravitate to. A lot of it in thanks to Lee, our program supervisor there. And so we're grateful that there is a space for that community. And so we continue to work with everyone in the community, provide as many programs and offerings as possible. And as is the case with many of our sites, there are a lot of competing priorities. I don't know if Eddie has the pool. There was an update from BPS. So I don't know if you want to expound on that.
Yeah, like other pool facilities, there was a variety of issues that were identified in the last year or two, and working with our colleagues at the facilities department of BPS, they're making, which was already communicated at the meeting on April 10th, they're making strides to repair. And once we get the opportunity and those repairs are there, we plan to activate the pools as soon as possible and make it accessible to everybody, but safety comes first, as well as the necessary investment so that the pool does not, again, fall into a scenario where we're unable to operate it. I would just say that it's not falling on deaf ears. There's a lot of work going into it. There are new contracts that have been put in place, collaborative efforts that have not only included BPS, but property management, and like I said, third parties such as Weston Sampson's and others, to ensure that when the pool is open, it's safe and it can operate for the foreseeable future. So as we get more information related about that, we will communicate that to everybody as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that, and appreciate both efforts on getting it done. I'm going to transfer over now to Director McSwain. Thank you for the work that you do, and I know this, again, youth are my number one priority, so I just really love this panel and the work that you all do. And just thank you for how accessible you and your team are to my office. And I think you covered a lot of it during your presentation, but I think Boston is made up of so many different neighborhoods, right? And you see in certain neighborhoods that they have less access to early education options. And I know, even like a place like Fenway, I think it's like one of the furthest places where they can get childcare access. So just on a very high level, across all of our neighborhoods, are there specific neighborhoods that you and your team are working to increase that access, or neighborhoods that you've identified that we need to do a better job in? And yeah.
Sure, thank you. So the supply and demand report that I've referenced, and you can look at it on our website, really targets where there are more children than there are seats. It varies between whether or not you have a 3 to 5 year old or if you have an infant or toddler. The entire city has a shortage of infant and toddler spaces, but 3 to 5, there are some neighborhoods that have more than others. So if you're talking about 3 to 5 year olds, we're really focused on West Roxbury, Rosendale, Hyde Park, as well as parts of Alston, Brighton. There are particular communities in Alston, Brighton, I think, that have services, but there are others that are not specialized communities that have difficulties finding care. And so really thinking about those couple of places as we are looking to expand. But the other thing is, because of infants and toddlers being a shortage, the work that we're doing with family childcare is really all over the city. Because each family childcare that opens can take up to 2 infants, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize that a center can only take 8. And so we're really focused on that, and we've spent the last year working with property managers to try and recruit family child care providers in affordable housing. That's also a need. We haven't made as much progress as we would like, but we're still moving forward. And we're going to, we just graduated a couple of new providers in BHA, so we've been working really closely with them to also try and expand family child care and BHA housing.
Awesome. I love that. And I had the opportunity to go, I think, to a location in Mission Hill where that was the example. So hope that we can create more and partner more with those providers and bring them into the neighborhoods. Again, really appreciate this panel, and appreciate that the work that you all do on behalf of our youth and families here in the city of Boston is a top priority for me. So really appreciate it. And I know that my office will continue to have communications with your departments. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Council Santana. The chair recognizes Council President Louis Jen. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the administration for being here, to Commissioner Rivera, Director McSwain, and to Eddie. Thank you for the work that you've done for many, many years now on behalf of the city. I want to start with Commissioner Rivera. You get a lot of pressure, especially from us here on the City Council, really just as a result of what we hear in community about making sure that our centers are open. I'm a Muni kid in Hyde Park, and I just want to thank you for the ways in which you've been so responsive to whenever we bring an issue to you. When I'm looking at the budget, there seems to be a decrease in the line item for childcare and out of school. That budget looks to have decreased by more than approximately $400,000 from this year. Is there a reason why there's such a significant decrease?
Some of the decreases were, we moved from one line item to the other. In that
Okay.
particular one, I believe that's what the case was, looking at our Director of Admin and Finance. So what we do is we look at where the funds were actually spent. And ultimately, it all goes back to the centers. So although it looks like a reduction, it'll be, it should pop up somewhere else, whether it's equipment or supplies for the staff at the sites. I can find out specifically where that went.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge that you face over at BCYF to getting sort of the updates to the centers that community members are often asking for?
Updates physically?
The physical
programmatically, or staff?
infrastructure. I know there's also programming requests, but talking
Yeah.
about the physical infrastructure.
I mean, the physical infrastructure, a lot of it is what we deal with across the city, which is deferred maintenance, which results in then, the building breaks down to the point where there's either a pipe burst or, the roof needs to be repaired, all of which is being addressed with, public facilities and property management through facilities assessment, and that's going to help inform capital projects and, again, ongoing maintenance as opposed to deferred maintenance. It has been a complete 180, working with the property management department and having them be the ones that do the routine maintenance at our facilities and respond to a lot of that day to day, as opposed to, for decades, BCYF had 3 staff that were allocated, and now we have an entire team. So we've seen a significant increase in responsiveness over the past couple of years, but again, it's not unique to BCYF across the city. The mayor and PFD are committed to really looking at how we approach that through the facilities assessment and how we make capital investments.
Thank you. A number of the BCYF centers are shared with Boston Public Schools. With those centers, I think it says it here, 14 are school-based sites of the 28, that's half of them. In those situations, is it BPS that is responsible for the maintenance of those community centers? One good example, we recently, Councilor Weber organized and Councilor Santana, all of us, over at the Hennigan, and that is a BPS, that's a shared site. Is BPS responsible for the maintenance there? And how does that make your job more challenging, having to coordinate with BPS?
Yeah, so there are 14 facilities that are school-based. And yes, it's not the same as, the facility that we own and manage, but ultimately it's all the city budget, so even how the funds are allocated, I think it all boils down to the same. 6 of one, half dozen the other. Whether it's BPS trying to find the funds to fix the facility or BCYF. But we're fortunate we have a great working relationship with BPS. BCYF has been in BPS spaces for nearly 55 years, since the inception of the Boston Community Schools. I think what's a little more challenging is communicating that to the community, right? They often don't care whether it's BPS or BCYF, they just want it fixed.
Right.
But it does take more communication and coordination, because BPS also has 142 facilities that they're trying to respond to and keep up. And I don't recall, did I answer your question? Sorry.
I think so. I mean, it's just that there's more coordination. Yeah, I mean, we find that all the time. Constituents come to us with state issues, with federal issues, and they don't care that it's not a local issue.
Exactly.
It's like, it's an issue I have, and you're going to be the one to solve it. And I think they probably approach it the same way. So it just seems that, like, from what I've seen is that it's a bit, the coordination that's required often tends to be it presents a lot more issues because BPS.
I mean, we
is
have
involved.
standing meetings with BPS. In fact, we have a standing meeting with BPS, PFD, PMD, BCYF, all of us that are managing these facilities together. So there is a coordinated effort.
Is it like once a month or once a quarter?
Monthly.
Once a month.
Once a month.
Okay.
And I meet with my colleagues at BPS weekly, and then sort of our facilities and operations, they meet regularly. So there's a cadence to our meetings. There is ongoing communication and a coordinated effort, which is more than I can say maybe from previous years. I think that on that front, we're doing well. It boils down to, again, prioritizing what gets done first. And just, with respect to BPS and what they are responsible for, in the BPS facilities, it's also the general cleanliness. So their janitors are responsible for cleaning of our spaces. We don't have janitors or maintenance staff in those facilities.
Okay. Thank you, and just know that we are here to support as
Appreciate that.
able, even as we're advocating alongside community, and I really appreciate the work that you do and understand the weightiness of the task oftentimes. Director McSwain, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of our littlest learners. I particularly want to uplift, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but the work that you've done alongside Community Labor United. I'm just thinking about the early childhood center that was open at the corner of Morton and Norfolk. Yeah. That opens really early to help out women who are in construction, and in the trade. So I want to thank you for that work. I want to understand how far we are as a city from realizing the goal of universal pre-K. I know that we are making strides, and I think, I was having a conversation with someone last night when I was in Dorchester, talking about how we are actually doing much better than I think the perception is, but we are still far, I think, from the goal. My first year here, there was a session, and I think it was with BPS, that said we should do, one of the big problems that BPS has is a marketing problem. People think that there are actually more seats than people know. And so wanted to just get a landscape and an understanding of where we are and what it is that we can do to be ensuring universality, like the availability to all of our families here in the city of Boston.
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. So just from a data perspective, of the 4-year-olds in the city of Boston, 52% of them are in a city-funded seat. Of the 3-year-olds, 22% of them are in a city-funded seat. What we have done this year, in addition to the branding piece and really talking about Boston Pre-K and all the different settings, is we've also taken a look at where the seats are being utilized across all of those settings. We're at about 94% utilization. I think what that points to is what you raised, which is there are some seats that are empty over the course of the year and other seats that are not. So we've done a couple of things to try and solve that problem. Number one is we moved the community-based portion of the Boston Pre-K application to January so that it would be at the same time as the BPS lottery for K0 and K1. So parents in March, sorry, it wasn't a month, they got the results of both. So you could register for one, you could register for both. You got the results on the same day. So I know if I applied to a preschool seat at Nursery, whether or not I got in, and I know whether or not I got into, let's say, the Hennigan, right? So part of what we're trying to do is have families make their choices earlier so that we can actually maximize the seats that we have. The community-based folks are continuing to work through their wait list, so as people decline, they're accepting people on the wait list. So we've seen a lot of movement in the 1,500 seats that we have in the community-based seats, and we anticipate that over the course of the summer that will continue and we'll have better utilization. The other thing is that having them both in the same platform is actually helpful for parents understanding that there are two options. What we're looking to move to, and it may be next year or it might be the year after, is a single application. So that if I go into Great Starts, I could apply for a K1 seat, both in a BPS school, but also in my community-based childcare setting. So that's a piece of what we're trying to do, as well as in places where we know that we have a lot of young people, but maybe the seats aren't all filled, working with our nonprofit partners and our community-based partners to ensure that the message is getting out to families that this is an option for them. I will tell you that I hear every day from people that they don't know that Boston Pre-K exists. So we still have some work to do, but we're really focusing on the neighborhoods where we don't see as much uptake.
And where's that? Is it my last? I know my time's over.
So there's a couple of places. We have some actually focused in Grove Hall where we've had some seats that have been empty. We have some seats in our family childcare because not everybody knows that family childcare is an option. As part of including our BPS schools on Great Starts, we've updated the website so it now all lives on BPS. If you go there, you will see not only an explanation of BPS schools, but also an explanation of family childcare, what it is, who might want to use it, same for center-based care, as well as Boston Pre-K. So really trying to amplify for parents what their different options are so they can make the choice that works best for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President Louis Jen. Just want to acknowledge that Councilor Weber has joined us. We also have received a letter of absence from Councilor Mejia. The chair now recognizes Councilor Fitzgerald. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's good to see you all. Marta, nice to see you. Ed. Chris, nice to see you as well.
Nice to see you too.
We were on I was with Council Mejia last night doing her sort of Zoom tour around this Amplify and Organize tour that she's doing, and she's holding it with different district city councilors. And one of the big things that came up last night, because of the portion of the South End that I represent, was a lot of people, it's not in my district specifically, but a lot of the South End residents use it as the Blackstone. And I know that that's sort of been this issue out there. Is there any update? As I know it's a great one, like it has a pool, it has all these things. Just an update on where we are there, and if it is in the pipeline, like where in the pipeline it may be, you know, in terms of investment or anything like that. Does that make sense?
I'll speak to that. The Blackstone is one of the pools that would need a comprehensive rehab. It isn't one of the facilities where we're talking about filtration systems or minor aspects of the pool. There is a groundwater issue. It has been and is continuously being assessed by BPS facilities. But that would be a larger scale investment compared to some of the other locations that we've talked about today, such as the Hennigan. So I would say that it's kind of finding the necessary funds to make that assessment. We are doing the most with the space that we do have, such as the auditorium. And again, it is somewhat limited at BCYF Blackstone, but there's dance programs, karate programs, and a lot of variety of other things that are occurring there. And we've seen an uptick in participation in programming, and that's been led by Center Director Marco Torres, who's doing a fantastic job there. But with respect to that overall investment, I would say that it will be a longer-term scenario for it to become operational again. Like any pool facility, once you find one thing, it usually leads to another. Sure. And the pool shell, I would say, is one of those aspects where you go in, you see there's water loss, and then it usually leads to groundwater issue and things like that. So the Blackstone itself, unfortunately, is in a condition that I would not say would be operational for the summer, but it is being assessed.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I do understand the sentiment that you're trying to say. It's going to be a long time, a lot of work.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of work.
No, understood. Thank you for that update. Besides that, there is only one BCYF center in District 3. It's the Leahy-Holleran. I can just tell you from parents that go to school with my kids, they do nothing but rave about it. The programming, and then shout out to Jill, Lisa, and the whole crew over there that do a fantastic job in the programmatic piece. But so many parents in the area are just like, oh, we're dropping our kids off at the Leahy-Holleran, for 1,000 different things. I actually just went swimming there the other day with my own kids, had the whole pool to myself. It was really, really cool, be able to do that. So yeah, just wanted to speak. And I know I saw you working with Do It to continue to expand access to technology. I know there's some Wi-Fi issues there, and I think you guys are aware of that, so thank you. I was looking at some of the numbers here that you're, because speaking both of the places I mentioned have pools, the total aquatic programming attendance. I noticed there's a huge jump from FY23 to 24, from about 28,000 to over almost 44,000. Do you think there's anything that attributes, is that just coming out of the pandemic, people getting more back into it, more pools being opened back up, or is that, how did we make, and I mean, even for the seniors from 23 to 24, when I look at the total senior programming attendance, you go from 14,000 to 25, another big jump. Was there anything we did there that we can replicate or will continue to do that caused such a large increase?
Yeah, so initiatives and focused investments in those areas. So a couple of years ago, we made an intentional allocation working with H-Strong for programming dollars for seniors, for instance. And so we saw an increase that fiscal year, and then we continue to see an increase. Typically, when we make investments in the initiatives, we see really start to see the growth 2 years out. But with the seniors, we saw it immediately, as well as with the swim investments in Swim Safe, adding lifeguards, and as well as opening new facilities. So all of those contribute to the increases you see.
Yeah, and the swim team at the Leahy Hall and the swim coaches and team are also great people as well. They're awesome.
We
My
had an
kids love them.
incredible network of coaches that support our staff and the swim league that continues to grow. I think we had 13 teams this year across our network. A couple of years ago, we were at something like 9 or 8. So again, coming out of the pandemic, we continue to expand and grow.
And do we feel that those investments will be sustained, like where we are right in the budget from the FY24 and into FY25? We felt like we're at a good level with those to continue that sustained investment to attract that amount of people.
Yeah, we're going to continue that. Swim Safe was a new initiative, a new investment. Internally, we move money around. So we, for instance, with H-Strong partnership, we look at where there wasn't so much spending, other areas, and we were able to reallocate those dollars. And it also speaks to the question that Councillor Ruth Z. Lujan asked earlier about where some monies went. It wasn't, it might have been a reduction from one line, but it was reallocated to either support an initiative or where we see we need more spending.
Yeah.
So short answer is yes, that's going to be sustained.
No, that's great. That's good to know. Last thing, I don't think it falls on you, but I'm thinking about seniors, and there's no senior center in District 3 either. It's not necessarily under BCYF's purview to provide the senior center, but for having senior programming and how we can maybe go to them and do outreach more to our seniors rather than having them maybe come to the Leahy Hall. If there's any ideas, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't even know. I don't have anything to offer at the moment, but when I'm thinking about the folks at Keystone and how could we do some of this senior programming and go out there and things like that, I'd love to continue talking about that as well. But otherwise, thank you for your time.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I don't believe Emily's had her hearing yet, but I'm sure that's something, sorry, Commissioner Shea, that's something she can speak to. And you mentioned Keystone. I know that's one of the sites that she works with. And her outreach team, she continues to expand that. So I'm sure she can speak to that.
Yeah, no, she will. I just saw when you have the senior programming, I'm like, well, that's great, but how, if there's the location for them, how can we get BCYF maybe to do that out there as well? But I'll of course talk to Commissioner Shea. Appreciate the time as always. Great seeing you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Fitzgerald. The chair recognizes Councilor Braden. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I feel like a foghorn this morning because allergy season is upon us. Good to see you all. First, let's see where I want to start. The 14 facilities within 14 BCYF facilities are within BPS in terms of co-located with schools. I'm just curious about what is the status of the Jackson Man now since the both schools have both closed. I'm just trying to fill in the blanks here in terms of access to the building, etc.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question, Councillor.
Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry, I need to lean into this. Yes, what's the status with the Jackson Man in relation to BPS at the moment, since the BPS schools are both closed at this time? In terms of responsibility, is BPS still, where do we divide these responsibilities?
So it's still a BPS facility.
Yeah.
So we work closely with them, even though the schools don't operate there. Is that your question? So the physical
plant and
plant
equipment.
Or facility, cleanliness, the janitors still operate, so they are still maintaining the facility.
Yes, so they contract with BPS then to provide those? We had a memorandum of understanding that was written in 2020. Did we renew that since the whole situation has changed since 2020?
With BPS?
With BPS, yeah.
So our MOA with BPS, or MOU, is still active. We are making updates to it, so we're amending some of the parts of the agreement to address current situations. So that would be one of the, case in point, Jackson Man, our relationship in response to pools. So we are looking to update that.
Okay. The Veronica Smith Senior Centre has to vacate their space for a temporary time due to getting a new HVAC system, which is really great. But I don't know. I imagine they might be out for 6 months or longer. They are looking at the Jackson Man community space to do programming for the seniors at the senior centre. I'm just wondering, are the bathrooms ADA accessible for elders with mobility problems? And is that a good? I know from using the bathroom, it's a toilet for little kids. There's no way sorry, I'll not use any bad words. There's no way an elder with mobility problems can safely use that toilet. So I'm just wondering where we're at with bathroom facilities and where we're at with that conversation.
I don't have the information on hand, but I can follow up with BPS facilities team. They're doing an assessment of that area. I know they've done a few walkthroughs, so obviously I know exactly the toilet you're talking about when it comes down to community meetings, like the child's bathroom. There are some other locations in the Armington Street side that are more adult-oriented, but it would just depend on where ultimately they end up being located and the necessary investments, which, again, the logistics of that would be through BPS facilities, along with, I would assume, Age Strong and more than likely ourselves as well, communicating that.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we've done several walkthroughs of both the front building that we no longer occupy as well as the Armington Street. And so that conversation is ongoing with the Veronica B. Smith staff as well as with Commissioner Shea and her team to make the best determination. So we've not quite gotten to the bathrooms yet because we don't know where that's going to land.
Yeah, it's bathrooms are a universal conversation around Boston and our school buildings. In terms of where are we at with the planning for the new community centre? I know we're getting some more money, or we've certainly moved it off the to-be scheduled status that we had last year in the budget.
So we continue to work with, PFD, and we're committed to the project. And so we're grateful to have completed the programming study and the siting study. And so the question now is how to best deliver the facility to the community. So we don't have a time frame for that. But I believe that recently Chief Irish provided you with an update that's the most up-to-date that you're going to get on that facility.
Mm-hmm. So we're moving forward gradually.
It's moving forward.
Good,
yeah.
thank you.
And
then, in terms of we got in the ARPA funds, we got $1 million ARPA funds to fix up or accommodate or adjust the landing space for the community centre. And I know we've spent some money I haven't been in. I have to go back for a visit with Rosie again sometime soon, but I haven't seen all the improvements in terms of how you've changed the spaces to make it usable. I was just wondering, how much have we spent the $1 million? Is there anything left of the $1 million that was for the community centre space that would make it available or upgrade it so it'd be wherever they landed? Because we did initially think they were going to the high school, so I envisioned that money would go into the auditorium space, because if we move out of the front end of the community centre, it doesn't have an auditorium, or it has an auditorium, but we don't necessarily have access to that. So where are we at with the $1 million?
So the $1 million has been spent or allocated. So that, as far as how quickly $1 million goes.
Yeah.
So that's already been either again allocated or spent. And I can confirm what percentage to this date has been spent.
It'd be really good to know what was invested in. And then So I had a question about early childhood. I was wondering, the AB Alston Brighton UPK places, I constantly hear about needing more. Do you have any idea what the shortfall is and what sort of plans we have to address that?
So I think that the shortfall there is actually pretty small, given the reduction in the number of young people who live in Alston Brighton. I can get you an exact number. It's less than 100. But I think it is specific to the kinds of community care that people in Alston Brighton would like. So as you know, we have our 2 Orthodox Jewish day schools in Alston Brighton. They would like to expand, and I think so would St. Columkill. And so I think those 2 things we're sort of weighing with what is the investment in the other spaces and what are our needs. We are going to be, as part of the conversation about the Mary Lyons and how it reconfigures, we'll be looking at, is that a space where we want to expand early childhood? Do we have a need? Particularly thinking about our inclusion classrooms and making sure that our young people who need an inclusive space at age 3 and 4 actually have a place in Alston Brighton where they can be.
Okay. My time's up. I'll come back for a second round. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Braden. The chair recognizes Council Weber. Council, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I was just following up on that, Director McSwain. Is it Director? Sorry.
Kristen is fine.
Kristen, okay. Neighbor. So in terms of expanding pre-K seats in districts, I guess citywide, District 6, is there anything that we can point to in JP, West Roxbury?
So this year we haven't expanded at all. If you look back at the history of the Boston Pre-K program outside of Boston Public Schools, it was a $15 million set aside. Some people call it a trust, but it was an amount of money that was put aside for a 5-year pilot to expand by 700 children. We've actually expanded to 1,500 children. And right now, over the course of this past year, what we really tried to do was look and see where are those seats consistently being filled and where are they not, both looking at BPS as well as the community-based seats. Additionally, because that trust is now emptied out, if you will, and the Boston Pre-K budget is solely part of Boston Public Schools, we've really been trying to think about how do we maximize all of these investments in the places and spaces that parents want to choose. So that we began this year, we will continue next year. So any expansion we would be looking to the following year.
And I guess what are the prospects for state funding? I know isn't there like a public-private partnership that's supposed to fund seats? That do we get any of those funds?
So we do get an investment through the state for pre-K from the Department of Early Education and Care. I think one of the things that is unknown in the federal environment, the budget that just came out from the White House the other day from OMB, does not include money for the preschool expansion grant, which Massachusetts has used for preschool expansion. And so I think the question is, given that potential reduction, what of state money will be included? We fully intend, when the application is open up again, to apply for the maximum amount that we can as Boston.
Is that going to impact funding in the next fiscal year?
It should not.
Okay. And then do you know, do you know what I'm talking? I thought there was some sort of, they were looking toward private funding. The state was supposed to create a pool of money for pre-K.
So what they've been using is the tax on wealthy individuals to fund it. So they do have a portion of that. I'm actually not familiar with the public-private fund, so I can go and look for that. But primarily what they've been using is both the operational budget for the state, but also that additional fund that's focused on education.
Okay, thanks. Now back to the Hennigan. No, I know Councilor Santana asked about the pool. I think what's the schedule? Do we have a schedule for when the pool's going to open?
I don't currently have a schedule for the reopening. I do know that they're currently assessing the variety of issues that are at that facility and working toward remedying them through the help of Weston Sampson, who is the third-party contractor that was brought in to.
Okay, and then, okay, and it's the filtration system, or
There's some
there are
structural
broader
issues. Yeah, for most pools, obviously one thing gets found and then another thing shortly thereafter, but there's a combination of things like chlorinators, filtration systems, needing new sand, concerns about the shell, as well as concerns about, which they have done some work on related to a structural issue in and around that.
Okay, thank you. And so Commissioner Rivera, thank you for coming to the Hennigan. We had a robust discussion about the facility, and I guess, is there anything I can point to in the budget that that shows an increase in resources or investment in the Hennigan, in programming or anything, or is it going up, down? You know, how is this proposed budget going to impact?
Yeah, so that the budget isn't cut up that way, rather, it's not by site. I'm happy we could probably run a query to look at what investments we've made and share that with you, but it's not allocated that way. It's allocated in larger buckets across the city to the department versus the sites.
Okay, and then I guess, at least in Jamaica Plain, we've had the councils, and they've sort of, they were used, now they're not being used. Have we replaced what they provided when they were up and running? You know, or is there a gap that exists now because we're not using them in the way that they were in the past?
We have replaced a lot of what the nonprofit councils have provided in the past. I mean, we're talking about entities that were created in the 50s to do everything from oversight of the staff to oversight of the facilities. So these entities would use membership fees and rentals and make repairs to facilities. So now, as you know, all of our facilities are maintained by the City of Boston. And so any program that is not specific to the council, we operate. We hire vendors to do swim classes. A variety of different activities. We order supplies. We rent the copier. So these are all of the different things that the councils would do that we have now responsibility for. And it's a great thing for them. These entities, again, would have to fundraise for all these things, and now those funds can be directed towards their programs. An example of that at the Hennigan is the JP Community Centers Council. They have an adult education program they run out of Curtis Hall. So that is their program. We're not looking to replace that. They also have an after-school licensed school-age program out of the Hennigan. We're not looking to replace that either. So they have a variety of programs that they offer that we're not looking to replace. And again, everything that's aquatics or sports related, we operate that. We have a staff for that. But when it comes to licensed program or, again, the adult education program, that is a program that is run by the council, operated by the council, and we partner with them.
Okay, and then in terms of like permanent employees and staffing, I think it's been an issue, at least when we look at the budget for BCYF. I think, you know, we're in the millions of dollars in underspending on permanent employees. And then when you look at the number of employees, we go from like 321 in FY22 to this last year is like 280. But then when you look at the spending on permanent employees, it goes from about 19 million, now it's 23 million. And so I guess, you know, in terms of like the increased spending for fewer people, I mean, maybe we've had to increase the amount we pay. How do I, is that CBA related, or is that, you know, are we paying people more? Is there an issue there? You know, I see almost like for next year, there'll be 100 positions vacant. You know, how are we going to fill that, and sort of when we look at that underspending on permanent employees, like it's a bit of a complicated question, but just, you know, should we think about that with 100 openings, and, you know, why is that? Why are the numbers going in different directions in terms of number of employees and spending?
Yeah, so we've made significant strides just in the last 2 to 3 months filling a lot of those vacancies. I mean, we have been just, dogged in our efforts to do the outreach, to bring people on faster. So anything that we can control, again, whether it's the outreach, the process for hiring, sort of shortening that window, we've done that. So, and I can circle back and share what we have open, but it's certainly not 100 positions. With the exception of the 68 seasonal lifeguards, those positions are recently posted. So our numbers are lower than that 100. It has been historic, as you mentioned, that we've left a lot of vacancies. A lot of our funding that's been left on the table is personnel because of those vacancies, and the vacancies have been in our lower paying positions, which are our direct service staff. And thanks to the work with the Office of Budget Management, the Office of Labor Relations, the Mayor's Office, a couple of years ago, we signed a new SEIU contract and senior contract, particularly the SEIU contract, and the increases in those salaries has helped to close the gap and fill those positions. But that is what you're seeing is lesser positions, but we have some of the lowest paid salaries, right, wages. So we do have to increase personnel to be able to close that gap. And we continue to work with the Budget Office and OHR to make sure that our salaries for the frontline staff in particular are competitive. And we are committed to doing a salary study. We're just trying to determine what positions do we want to tackle first. But that has contributed greatly to a lot of those vacancies.
Yeah, just one quick follow-up, Chair. Just in terms of those vacancies, like what impact is that having, on the services? Obviously we want our kids, we want a healthy BCYF and, but if those vacancies, where do we see that in terms of operations?
Mm-hmm. So where we see it is in the athletic personnel, right? So it does hinder some of the site's abilities to deliver the Let's Play Boston programming, right? We see it in the youth workers, and so those again are the ones that we've really been struggling to fill, despite some recent progress, but we continue to have a hard time filling those. Again, the CBA that was recently signed last couple of years and the increases that the city committed to over the last couple of years has helped in filling those positions, but it does impact operations. And what we find ourselves doing is we find ourselves moving staff around, right, to meet where the demand is. And we also have brought on vendors or partner with an entity to try to fill some of those gaps.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council Weber. Just want to acknowledge that Council Murphy and Council Flynn has joined us. Council Murphy, the floor is now yours.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It was great being with you at the Draper Pool last week. Great to see when these facility upgrades get complete, and the community was excited, so that's great. But I'll just check on the condom pool. I got to put it on the record, Eddie. I know you pick up my call. Thank you, both of you. You're always very responsive. But and I was flipping through the book. I like this new book. It's formatted nicely by neighborhood and then citywide programming. But what is the likelihood that the condom pool will be open for the summer camp and programming and neighbors?
It's very likely. So they've made the necessary repairs to the filtration system, primarily the chlorinator. In progress right now is a handicap lift that will be put in. These are updates from BPS facilities, just for everybody to be aware. And one of, not yet started, but they're a requirement for depth markers. But the pool is ready to become operational and then be permitted by inspectional services once these kind of, I like to say minor because they're not, going to take the pool down. So, yeah, we have every intention of having that pool completely operational for the summer, and ideally, if some of these things can happen sooner rather than later, maybe even before that.
Okay. And you've made great efforts, and it shows with the lifeguarding on retention and hiring. Are we also ready for these pools that we're hoping will open but aren't yet? So there's not staff in place, because it will be kind of last minute putting people in place, so we prepared for that.
We've had a head lifeguard hired for the Conan for some time. We're constantly bringing on part-time lifeguards as well as full-time. Our ideal staffing for locations at BPS pools consists of a head lifeguard, another full-time lifeguard, and then usually a combination of 2 to 3 part-time lifeguards. In the last conversation we have with my aquatics team, which is, done weekly, if not daily, where we feel very confident that we would be able to get a minimum of 3 people there almost immediately to not only open the pool, but to program it, and then we would continue to build on that staff with seasonal hires. And looking into the school year, finding other individuals, usually after the end of the summer, more people would like to get full-time or part-time jobs, and then we would reallocate them, but we have every intention of when that pool opens to maintain its operations.
Awesome, thank you. You touched on it, Marta, but I was going to ask just about the councils. I know a couple years back we had a conversation about that, how they did start back at a time where they were expected to do different things, and how has that gone? Like, are all of our councils in a good place, do you feel, or is there still need for some adjustments or kind of education around what their role is and what support we do give or not give, or how much they can program themselves?
And then it varies by site, right? Some, once the structure changed to, for instance, the council's not collecting fees, right? Some councils felt like that was their time to just depart, right? And not in a bad way. They felt like, okay, our job is done. So we currently have about 21 active councils. At one point, there were about 35. And again, as I mentioned to Councilor Weber in my previous comments, the cities or BCYF has picked up, the expenses that were once on the councils, whether it's facilities, supplies, programming, and the ones that are operating are, they either operate licensed after-school programs or adult education programs, or some combination of both.
Okay. And the mayor announced like an expansion with the art classes through the BCYF. Could you just talk on that and how that's going, or when that's expected to start?
So it's already started.
Okay.
It had started actually, I think, shortly before it was announced. We started to roll that out, and I want to thank the Human Service Cabinet and our Deputy Chief Lisa and Chief Jose Masso, who have been incredible partners in that. And essentially, it's similar to the Swim Safe initiative and other initiatives. It's about an infusion of resources to, or even Let's Play Boston, right? Directed resources and training and support to expand programming. So similarly, there was, saying the fall last year, there was an RFP that went out, sort of like a call to different artists. We also work with arts and culture around this to identify a variety, range of different activities and artists that will bring their expertise and their talent into our centers. So I believe there were, we thought it was going to be a handful of sites, but I believe we have about like a dozen sites, and that's going to continue to expand.
Great. We had a hearing a couple months ago, Council Flynn over there, about facilities. So we had Brian from BPS and also Eamon. And so one of the questions is, that relationship now where you fall under property management, like how is that relationship going? It seems like it's a better fit now in that you can focus, right? When I talked to Eamon, he said, we're taking over what we're good at, and now they can focus on the programming and the things that they're supposed to be focusing on. And do you feel like that's a positive shift?
100%.
Okay.
I had earlier commented on how it's been complete 180 in terms of the responsiveness, the ability to just stay on top of our facilities, and even the use of Asset Essentials, which is their project management, or rather their management database. So requests go in, our staff get immediate results and a response. If something is on order, they know the status of it. So the communication, the responsiveness, and just the work in general has been incredible. It's truly a great partnership. And this was just so overdue. This is a solution that we've always needed.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Also, we were told, I think, Eddie, you were here when, unlike the past summers, there will not be any community centers closed this summer. Is that true for just regular maintenance that will shut down, that our summer camps like the Leahy Holleran and others will be able to move forward?
Yes.
The Orenberger for our special needs camp?
Yeah, at this time there is no BPS facility that we currently cohabitate with them that would be closed. There's always logistics around summer planning if there's multiple programs going on in a facility, but the communication's been open and clear, and we don't anticipate having to move like Lake Holleran to South Boston
Perry,
again, or
yep.
things like that, of that
Oh.
kind. So,
No, I've run out of time, but I know that we've touched about the expansion just of seats in different neighborhoods, so we can follow up on that, but I know that that's already been touched on, but definitely different neighborhoods like the Jewish community and others where we see a need, how can we help facilitate that expansion in specific spots across the city that feel like they're, could use a few more, but thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. The chair recognizes Councilor Flynn. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, I want to apologize to you for being late into the panel. I had a tour this morning of Suffolk County House of Correction and wanted to see their drug treatment program, but I do apologize for being late. It's good to see the administration team that's here. What's the latest? I know the pool at the Blackstone is not going to be fixed. I talked to Jose Masso a few times. He was working on a program to ensure that kids in the South End could have access to swimming lessons, especially kids of color, kids from the public housing development at Cathedral, kids from Villa Victoria, kids from Roxbury, Blackstone, Castle Square, rather. What is the status of Jose's commitment to ensure my constituents are able to access swimming lessons that normally would use the Blackstone swimming pool?
I would, for every center, and I think this is a common contingency plan we have for our aquatic facilities when they go down, because unfortunately, sometimes they're unforeseen, so similar to what happened at Curtis Hall. Blackstone does have a van. We do have open enrollment. It is free to everybody, and we prioritize our standalone locations and our BPS locations to have access to functional pools. So today, if there was, and if there is a demand and an ask, with the Quincy being open, the Condon shortly to be open again, as well as Mason, and some of the pools in the direct area, we would always ensure that our patrons at the South End would have the option of joining, whether it's their swim team, their swim lessons, their lifeguard courses, and we try to regularly disperse these programmatic activities at these different pools and leave it open. But similar to what we did when Curtis Hall went down, we moved the swim team and others to the Mattahut for a period of time for that. And we've also increased non-aquatic programming at the Blackstone, to take advantage of the opportunity that we have there. So,
Are we convinced that the van picked up young kids and took them to a pool, and the kids were able to swim in a designated pool? They receive lessons. Are we able to determine how many kids were receiving swim lessons, how many times a week, the times? Maybe through the chair, I'd like to see if I'm able to get a analysis of kids from the South End and Roxbury having equal access to swimming lessons. I want to make sure that they receive swimming lessons like every other kid across the city has the ability to get swimming lessons. Is that a fair question, Mr. Chair, that I can respectfully ask the
Absolutely.
administration team? Okay. Okay. But the long-term plan is the Blackstone pool will not be open because the only way it could be open is if the Blackstone school is torn down and then the pool will be rebuilt. Is that still accurate?
my understanding is that the condition of the Blackstone pool is, and in order for it to become operational, I'm not positive that the school would need to be torn down, but I know for a fact that the pool would need to be completely rebuilt.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ed. The Curly,
Yes.
right down the street from my house, I spent a lot of The last 7 years, working with Mayor Walsh, trying to get the money for the Curly, and want to say thank you to Mayor Walsh. It's had problems since it opened with infrastructure and shoddy supplies, maybe. Where are we with that? And I do want to acknowledge the professional team and staff down at the Curly. They do a wonderful job. But I do want to acknowledge that we have had infrastructure issues there, and it is impacting the building. What's the latest on that, Ed?
Yeah, I would say the number one, infrastructure issue that we've faced at the Curly was related to plumbing. There was a variety of plumbing issues that arose through just regular utilization that, working with the property management team, we've been able to identify and fix one by one. There are some bigger logistical issues, such as like the floor. There's some pitching in the bathroom flooring and things that need to occur, which would take the site offline for a little period of time to do that particular work, but we're trying to schedule that at a time that would be less impactful. But there's been a variety of contracts with drainage companies to make sure that our lines are clean. We've replaced water hammers throughout the entire building. We continuously work with PMD to ensure that the steam room and the saunas are up and functional. Those are back in order. Unfortunately, they've actually never failed in the women's locker room, but for some reason, the men's locker room, they like to rip the sensors out of the wall, which has caused for the delay for that to happen. It's human error. But again, there was a specific team that went through and did a complete assessment of the plumbing and that infrastructure. That report, I believe, if it has not yet been shared, is being reviewed right now. But the Curly was also a facility that, in the overall facility assessment plan, which was all of our standalone facilities, was assessed as well. And we were given different degrees of, immediate investment, long-term, things of that kind that we could always share as well. And that kind of helps dictate where we would put our funds. I would say we're in a better condition now than we were past few months ago, and I would really say the reason for that is our partnership with property management, having the teams that come in with the expert skill to look at these things. And again, I think there's more work to be done, but we've gone over the hump on a few of those
Thank
issues.
you. Mr. Chair, may I ask one more question?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Condon pool, the Condon facility, I was at the Condon over the weekend for Mother's Day lunch and bingo with seniors, but I also talked to young kids there. Mostly, Eddie, as you know, you don't see a more diverse group of kids than the kids at the Condon. It's in the middle of the West Broadway development. And the same thing, Mr. Flynn, when are you going to fix the pool? Mr. Flynn, I see other neighborhoods with the pool. These are young African-American kids. These are Latino kids. And they want swimming lessons, and I don't blame them. But I can't keep saying to them that, just be patient and wait. I want my constituents to get the same services that other neighborhoods have. Right now, I don't have it in Blackstone, or I don't have it at the Condon. The Josiah Quincy was fixed. Josiah Quincy is fixed, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. But why can't I get the pool opened at the Condon?
The pool will be open definitely before the summer. There are two minor repairs that some minor repairs were done to the filtration system, specifically the chemical feeder and controller. That was just completed. We're in progress for adding a handicap chair, which is a requirement from ISD permitting and depth markers. But I will take this to my colleagues at BPS to ask for it to be expedited. I would like to see the pool, I think we would all like to see the pool open before the summer and as soon as possible, but it is in working order, and we do have staff ready to go as soon as we're able to get that done, so sooner rather than later.
As you know, the Condon School is on the corner of Dorchester, is on the corner of D Street and Gold Street. I live on Gold Street, so I'm there several times a week, and every day I go by there and the kids are saying to me, Ed, fix the pool.
Yeah.
And I can't keep saying to them that, it's in progress. And in the meantime, they're waiting to get swimming lessons, and you see kids from wealthier communities having a grand old time in swimming pools, but kids in public housing, they have to wait. I just can't, I think people know that. I just can't accept that. And I have a wonderful working relationship with your team, Commissioner, but I just can't accept that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. My first question, I'll start off with the contracts for BCYF. What types of services do we contract out for?
Wide range of services, everything from a variety of arts and class, fitness lessons or classes. An example is fitness instructor, right? Specialized fitness instructor for seniors. Sewing lessons. Sewing's been huge with youth and adults. So we've purchased a bunch of sewing machines, and we've had a variety of individuals do sewing classes, dance. So it ranges. Right. So essentially it's bringing an expertise or a skill that we either don't have amongst our own staff or that we want to provide more of.
Awesome. And based from the RFIs, I see
That's contracted services within either youth and services line, because there's also contracted services that might be for facilities related.
Okay.
Correct.
What about for facilities related? What do we contract out for facilities?
So we're currently working with the finance team for, obviously, like our hygienic services, so things that would be for cleaning, but installation of supplies such as the menstrual products we identified earlier. We work closely with PMD on contracting third-party contractors, whether it be plumbers or whatever the specialized work would be, to bring them in. We do a lot of, we've had individualized contracts related to aquatic assessments and things of that kind. A lot of what you'll see in the past year is more along the lines of understanding what conditions our buildings are in, and getting those necessary reports so that we can target particular investments so that that are in the immediate state. We're looking right now and working to ensure that we have funds necessary to have a standing contract for aquatics, so that we're not constantly going through the bidding process of getting somebody to come in. And that's kind of somewhat of the delay when it comes to repairs and things that we have to go through, is just following the procurement rules and posting, waiting for it to be solicited, getting 3 people, and then and weighing those. But that would be, I would say that's primary. But also, I think another service that we do, a lot of the certifications that we're getting throughout our staff, for the lifeguarding, as well as the adaptive swim, things like that. Those are all contracted out to people that have expertise and ensure that we don't self-certify. So, but facility-wise, primarily for the standalones, that's what I would say. Like, again, we're not making major investments from our budget into BPS facilities. Okay. The Jackson Man is a unique scenario, but that was related to the ARPA funds. But primarily the standalones is what you're seeing. I think the Johnson Center was a significant investment in the last year as well to get that operational.
Thank you. And based off the RFIs, I'm not sure if it's facilities or programming, but it looks like it might be a combination of both. Out of the 5 out of your 84 contracts listed include minority women business enterprises. Is that number accurate? And if it is, how can we improve increasing diversity among our contracts?
I want to say it's accurate, right? And we try to really work with our sites. Oftentimes they're requesting vendors, people in the community. And we're community working with them as well as with the equitable procurement team to expand our list of vendors to include persons of color and BIPOC women businesses.
All right. Yeah, would love to see, because when we're looking at it, it's things like pest control, transportation after school program, uniforms, we'd love to see if we can increase the diversity and contract in those fields. What does BCF do to help our families and youth in terms of accessing or addressing food accessibility? Is there any programming or initiative?
Yeah, so I mean, probably the biggest is our summer feeding sites. So all of our sites serve are feeding sites to some degree. So they are either if they're school-based or standalone. We work with the Office of Food Justice to ensure they're either an actual feeding site or that there's access to one nearby. For instance, the Tobin School is a summer feeding site. Youth from the Tobin Community Center as well as the Johnson Center would go to the Tobin School to access summer meals. So we work closely to ensure that we're either a site or there's a designated site nearby. And then throughout the school year, we have some sites that are actual food pantries or have food pantries within them. And our youth, whether it's a snack after school meals and snacks, we want to make sure that all of our kids are fed. There's always more work to do there as we're seeing more and more food insecurity in our city. But we're fortunate that we have, again, a credible partnership with and resources to make sure that families have access.
Thank you. And then in your projects for Boston Centers for Youth and Families project profiles, there's a project mission or a project that's Youth Budget Round 4. Can you elaborate on, can you speak to what this program is and then just where are we at in the timeline?
Is that a capital project?
This is in the budget book. It says Boston Centers for Youth Families Project Profiles, Youth Budget Round 4. The project mission is to engage youth across the city using participatory budgeting methods. Projects include a performing and visual arts studio, a digital billboard, displaying resources for homeless youth, and future media center.
Let me just make sure I'm seeing round 4.
That's the investment that they want to make at the Tobin Community Center.
No, the Tobin is another one. So the OYEO participatory budgeting sits within our budget. So that's what you're seeing. Some of these have already been designated years past. So I'd have to get back to you on that particular one. There is one, and I don't believe it's round 4, but one of these is committed to a media center at the Tobin, but I believe that's in the description, and it's not what you just read.
Okay.
So round 4, I don't have the specifics. Again, I could find out from OYEO, but that would be essentially the funds for the participatory budgeting that's facilitated by them.
All right, thank you. Just want to acknowledge that we've been joined by the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin. Councilor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and apologies for arriving a little late. I was actually at one of the community centers this morning over in Hyde Park. So I was there just meeting with a few residents. So, which is why I really wanted to make sure that I got in, to make sure that I shared my appreciation to your cabinet, to your department, because at least I'll speak for my district, the various BCYF centers that we have, and I like to brag that I think we have one of the most amounts of BCYF centers in my district. They're all like gathering spots for our community, every single one of them. So just thank you for making sure that that's possible. And to Kristen McSwain's work as well with early childhood, just thank you for your collaboration throughout my tenure so far, and always just being available to answer very difficult questions sometimes, or also just very helpful, some helpful questions too. I wanted to ask about BCYF a few questions, very simple questions about programming that you have available throughout the summertime. I see this, which is very helpful. Are you guys expanding it? Is it the same as last year? What's your partnership like with outside vendors, et cetera? I just want to know what's available to the students this year.
So the book you have in front of you, the summer guide, we've published that for, say, decades. It's taken different iterations. You can also find it online, but because we publish it in March, April, and we're still planning for the summer, it doesn't include all of our offerings. So the most up-to-date you'll find online. And there is, again, that same book is, there's a PDF version, but if you go to the different activities or different sites, you'll be able to find the most up-to-date summer programming. So I just had to mention that because they continue to add. As far as working with other vendors, I mean, there's a variety of ways we work with external entities, nonprofit groups, different individuals and artists, and folks who bring expertise. And Chair Worrell was asking earlier about contracted vendors or contracted services. That's one way that we bring them on. Is a site has a desire to run a particular program, again, requires certain expertise or some form of knowledge, and so they were able to bring on partners that way. And then some partnerships are long-standing, decades-old partnerships, whether it's a variety of community leagues or groups that use our facilities. So we do partner with hundreds of different entities at our facilities, and they vary from site to site.
That's awesome. No, that's great. I'm glad to hear that. And I also want to make sure that I bring up the point of how successful the Flaherty Pool is in Rosendale, and the programs for the classes there. The Rosendale Dolphins are amazing. But I always hear that parents want to be able to have. They're asking for more openings for the swim classes, because I think obviously the space is limited. So I wanted to just advocate if there's a possibility of expanding the classes either at the Draper Pool or at the one in Jamaica Plain, to make sure that parents have other options too, because it's such a successful program there that there's literally lines out the door when the registration opens. So I just wanted to know, do you have any plans for expanding that in other pools?
Yeah, I mean, through SwimSafe, we have expanded access, not just at our sites, but also through different partnerships, right, with the YMCA, for example. And we want every young person, and the mayor has committed that every young person in the city of Boston has a chance to learn to swim. We have had to, in order to serve our Boston youth, at many of our pools, we've had to limit that to Boston residents, to Boston youth. So we've had to, unfortunately, turn some people away that are not Boston residents. But again, it's one of the ways that we are trying to prioritize our Boston youth. So the swim team is different from the swim lessons, right? There's time when we allow the team time at the pool, but we can't expand that because we are committed to ensuring, again, swim lessons, which means we need more pool time. And like many of our facilities, it's just competing priorities, because we also have lap swimmers that want more time, and then seniors want more programming. So we're really trying to juggle all of these priorities. But certainly for BCYF, the commitment to ensuring our youth have access to swim lessons is at the very top.
That's great. And I just wanted to thank you all for doing that. I'm very lucky to have that specific pool in my district, and parents just love it. And I remember a few years back, the hiring of lifeguards was always a concern. Do you continue to see that, or have you made progress? What has that been like for the past few years?
We have made significant progress in the hiring. One of our accomplishments that I touted earlier was that for the first summer, in quite literally decades, we were able to fill all of our seasonal lifeguard positions last summer, summer 2024. That was 68 seasonal positions, and we were able to fill that. We hope to be on track to do that again this summer. And then our year-round positions, so we have 53 year-round positions and several part-time for our school-based sites. We do still have some vacancies there, but again, we recruit year-round, unlike some entities that only recruit for the summer, and we are doing well in that area as well. A lot of it is due to the incredible work of our pool staff, of our aquatic staff, in ensuring that there's a pipeline. Everything from, we have a summer aquatics program, like junior lifeguards program. We have, again, training that we offer individuals that's offered for free to get the certification to be lifeguard, to be WSI certified, to be able to teach. All of these efforts over the last years have been fruitful, and we're seeing that we're filling the positions. And I cannot ignore the fact that the city has made a significant investment in bonuses as well.
That's great. No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking at Eddie because I remember there being a huge push to hire more lifeguards. So that's really good to hear that you guys have met that goal. And before my time ends, I just want to make sure that I get this one in. It's regarding the Mildred pool. It's the pool that probably gets the most questions in my Mattapan High Park area. we did get some good news from BPS that the HVAC system is being worked on
Yes.
right now. So I believe that the heat concern won't be anymore, hopefully, knock on wood. But I wanted to know, are we on time to make sure that that is open again this year?
Yep, so we're closed for a little bit for the entire facility because they were doing air handling work.
Yes.
The pool is operational, but one of the biggest aspects of any pool is the HVAC system. Mildred's facility has been plagued with a variety of issues with that, and we're scheduled to reopen the pool at the end of May. The work is, they're processing, probably doing it as we speak.
Yes.
And we anticipate that they meet that deadline, but it's an investment that is absolutely needed. If you don't have proper HVAC in these facilities with the evaporation of water, it'll literally rot the windows out of the walls. So
Yeah.
you need to, you need to have that, and that was the biggest. It had consistently been the biggest issue at that facility. So having that investment and the investments that were made over the past year on the facility itself are going to put that pool in a position to operate, for the foreseeable future.
No, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Before I just give it back to the chair, I just want to again just say thank you. Your facilities are heavily used in my district. The residents appreciate it. The programs are appreciated. So I look forward to continuing to work with you all and just expanding the resources. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor Pepin. I just want to read Councilor Julie Mejia's absence letter. It has a few questions for the panelists. Dear Chairwoman and colleagues, I regret to inform you that I will not be in attendance today at Ways and Means hearing on Boston Centers for Youth and Families and the Office of Early Childhood. I've been called for jury duty and required and grateful to fulfill this civic obligation. That said, I would be grateful to have my questions directed towards BCYF, but will be reflected on the record. The first question is, in FY24, approximately $4 million was transferred out of BCYF. Can you explain why this amount was underspent and where those funds ultimately went?
$4 million. The only thing that comes to mind would be that we continue to move some funds to property management.
Okay.
I can follow up with more details about the $4 million. Does that sound about right?
As of March 31st, 2025, about 40% of the funds allocated for permanent employees remain unspent, indicating some underspending. However, in the overtime category, spending is nearly triple the budgeted amount for FY25. What factors are driving this significant underspending on overtime?
So again, I touched on that earlier when I talked about in response to Councilor Weber's question, that we have struggled to fill the lower paying positions. The CBA that was signed a couple years ago to increase particularly our lower paying jobs has helped to fill some of those vacancies, and we continue to look at our salaries and what we need to do to make sure that we can fill those positions and have decent, comparatively just decent salaries. And until we fill all those positions, we are going to have to rely on that overtime.
Question number 3 is, could you clarify who qualifies as an emergency employee? What benefits are they not eligible for compared to permanent employees? I'm trying to better understand the rationale behind the size of this line item, particularly in the light of the overtime overspending.
The emergency employees, I believe that's the child care and Camp Joy.
I'm not sure I guess we would need more clarity on the question, but as a department, we have the right to identify the specific amount of employees as emergency personnel, and that notification goes out to staff.
I'm sorry, that's emergency operations personnel. This is a line item, the emergency personnel. Right. Again, I believe that is for the City Hall Child Care and Camp Joy, but I will follow up.
All right, thank you. Under miscellaneous supplies / materials, I see that by the end of Q3 in FY24, only about 3% of the funds remain. Can you explain what types of expenses fall under this category and what accounted for the rapid expenditure?
Again, it's very specific, so I can follow up with more information. I don't have that in front of me. Okay. But oftentimes we have a cadence to when our sites order supplies. Our busiest season is the summer. So when the money gets spent, typically is closer towards the end of the fiscal year in order to have the supplies we need for, again, our busiest time of the year, which is the summer.
Got it. I've noticed a trend across departments related to waste removal costs. From your perspective, what has your experience been with the contractor currently handling this service. As of December 31st, 2024, nearly 93% of the waste removal budget had already been spent. Can you explain why that is?
The cadence for when the contract is paid out, again, when the report came out, hadn't been fully paid out. That's what I'm thinking she's asking about. It's a multi-year contract. I believe we're up for renewal. No, one more year? Contracted services, waste management. We'll follow up.
All right, thank you. In the workers' comp medical line, BCYF had no funds budgeted yet. $23,000 was spent. Should we be routinely budgeting for this category, or has it historically not required funding?
So we typically do budget for it. Yeah.
Okay. And then I wish to extend my gratitude to BCYF and Office of Early Childhood Leadership, who showed up today, and look forward to further conversations on these matters upon my return to City Hall. Thank you for your attention to this. Best regards, Julie Mejia, Boston City Council at Large. And then we'll submit these questions to you for follow-up. I'd like to go now to Councilor Braden. Councilor, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm a little got pool envy over here. All my colleagues have so many lovely centres, and we have got one that's not doing so good. I just want to ask about how many BCYF staff does the Jackson Man have at the minute?
They have a center director, a program supervisor, a staff assistant, athletic assistant, and 2 open positions. One is a youth worker and the other is an athletic director. The athletic director position was supposed to be filled as of recent, but unfortunately the candidate did not meet a minimum qualification after a period of time that we had given that applicant to fulfill that qualification.
What's the minimum qualification for an athletic director?
One of them is a driver's license. So we were working with that individual to get his driver's license. We gave him a period of like
6 months.
6 months after 2 separate attempts, and not succeeding at that. We've reposted it to see if we can get someone who can meet that qualification.
And are they resident, city residents? They have to be resident city of Boston? Yes. Okay. I'm just looking at the lovely booklet with all the programming for the city, and it says that the Jackson Man Community Centre is located in a new space within the complex. Please check the website for updated programming information, and there's nothing on the website. And last summer, we had kids going the whole way to Dorchester to try and do soccer program. There was no programming in Alston Brighton. So where are we at with programming for Jackson Man this summer?
So they have spring and summer programming, so I will make sure that's updated in the website. Not sure why that's not, but they are actively, again, offering programming in both spring and the summer. The site, as you know, Councilor, when we were moving the staff over to the Armington side, we were able to set up the council adult education program before the end of the year. That was the pressing issue, because they're funded to provide a certain number of classes by a particular date. So we were able to do that, and then once the staff was relocated, we also opened it up for a variety of community groups that have been using the facility since end of last year. Our staff itself, or our programs and our move itself from Cambridge to Armington has taken longer. I'll say that it's, I don't know, 50 plus years that they were trying to move into a new location. It was not easy. We had to go through a lot of purging. So the move for BCYF itself took a lot longer than we anticipated. But we are now, if you haven't been there by lately, as of about a month ago, Rosie is completely moved in, they're settled in, and now they're just waiting to fill those last 2 vacancies. But they do have an athletic assistant that's there. Again, spring programming is up and running. They have everything from gardening to volleyball clinics, and we're happy to follow up and make sure that that's posted.
Yeah, because it's one of those things. We have a centre now. We do have a centre, but nobody knows it's open. That's the other question. I'd love to see some like signage out on Cambridge Street to say that it's still open, you know, go around into Armington Street, because You know, the other question I had was in terms of just core support. Like, how does the funding happen? Like core support. Like I know the council pays for the adult education program, and they do the grant writing and all for the adult education program. In terms of just the regular BCYF programming, how is that funded, and what is core support?
So the core, like the amount,
Yeah.
it varies across sites. One of the things that, and I mentioned this earlier, when councils were funding programming, there was a great deal of inequity across the city. And now that we fund that programming centrally, we ensure that that it's equitable. That programming to sites is based on staffing, programmable square footage, and hours of operation. Those are the three things that we look at. And it's all driven by the center director working with the operations and programming team to look at what do they want to offer. We have centers that have done community-wide surveys to try to get an idea of what the community wants to see. We've done focus groups with youth to learn what youth want to see, most recently with girls, to learn about how do we get them more involved in sports. So we look at a variety of things, again, feedback from the community and our constituents, as well as the center staff working with our central operations and programming team to develop the budget and what we're going to fund at those sites. We seldom say no and turn things away, which is probably one of the things I get criticized a lot from my finance and operations and programming teams, but we have a great deal of needs at our sites, and we're happy to continue to support that.
Yeah.
The council, as you said, continues to support the adult education program because that is their program. So they are responsible for the programs that they operate and that they're funded. And that's the adult education program in that case.
In terms of after-school programming, I don't know that are they offering any after-school programming over there at the moment?
Since the schools left, particularly when the Jackson man left the building, what I understand from the center director is that that was their feeder, right? So that was a school that the kids would naturally go from the school into the after-school program. And it is a licensed after-school program that it was operated by the council. And they held that license. When the school left, they found that, and particularly post-COVID, they were struggling to fill the vacancies. So the program did shut down.
Part of the problem was just transportation. Like this, kids went to, and it's like we're 4 years after, we're going away from COVID now. So a lot of the kids that were COVID involved were like they're maybe going on to high school or whatever at this time. But the Edison and the Gardner there's a group that are busing kids, taking kids from the Edison and the Gardner to the West End House. I think a couple of hundred kids. But we have way more need than we have capacity for. So it'd be really interesting to see how we could step up the after-school programming and the kids are still there. They're just going to different schools. So after-school programming at the Jackson Man, and see how, really look into that and see where because we don't have enough capacity for the kids that we have in the district.
I mean, we continue to offer, again, a variety of activities, but there is a focus on the teens. That's what Rosie is seeing coming in the door. So the teen center is thriving, and a variety of activities that are thriving are more geared towards teens. Again, with the school-age population declining once the school closed, but we're always open and welcome a conversation with the council if they look to reinstate that license for the after-school program.
Yeah, very good. I think my time's up again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. International Day of Play, I think it's a great initiative. I was just online looking it up, and it was described online, a time to celebrate the power of play. It's a time to raise awareness about how central play is to every child's development and well-being. And it's a time to come together to make sure that every child is able to fulfill their right to play. Last year, we put forward an amendment for indoor playgrounds. Where are we on that initiative? And then can you describe what goes into implementing that initiative?
So we don't have the space to have set aside a playground indoors. That would essentially take programmable square footage offline. What we have done, and thanks for your advocacy, sort of setting aside $25K for toddler time, we've expanded toddler time across our sites and facilities. And so essentially we put out, toys, different equipment, and whether they call it toddler time, family gym, or toddler play, we've grown from, we had about, there were, let me look here, 11 sites prior to last year that were doing some form of toddler time, right, for the littles, 0 to 5. And now we have, we've doubled that. I'm sorry, we had 6 sites and we've doubled that to 13 sites now.
All right.
So we had the Leahy Hollering, Curly, Curtis Hall, Roach, Nazaro, and Paris Street has some form of programming for toddlers. And again, now we have added Hyde Park, Rosendale, Johnson, Gallivan, Holland. Did I say Rosendale? Yeah, so we have 13 sites that are providing some form of programming. And when I say that includes, it's 682 offerings for toddlers this past year. And that is a significant growth from less than 300 the previous year.
That is large. Can you, the new sites, can you send the hours of operation for?
Absolutely.
Thank you. That would be
And
helpful.
some sites chose to have it be a Saturday,
Yep.
right, because of families, and some have spread it across 3 days, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something to that effect.
Yeah.
I'm happy to send that schedule. Two of those sites, their toddler time hasn't commenced, and they're starting it in the summer.
Great to hear. Yeah, the idea is, I would love an indoor playground, but knowing that we don't have the space, it's to create that toddler time so that our youngest residents, our youngest Bostonians have a place to play.
It's just any time, again, with the limited space we have, I know it sounds like a lot, but because of the many competing priorities, anytime we take space offline, it just makes it incredibly difficult. But we're able to take a multi-purpose room, turn it into a playground
Right.
for a couple of hours. We're able to, even our outdoor spaces, partnering with Kristen, again, around these heating or cooling centers rather, or cooling centers on hot days, turning some of those outdoor, sprinkler areas or adjacent spaces. We have cooling and misting tents at over a dozen of our sites. Working with Kristen and other partners, we're able to introduce playtime, actual structured playtime with families. So those are the ways we're trying to be creative about still having that time for parents and the space for families.
I'm going to dive into the underspending. I was going to go to line item by line item, but I'll just take the whole department overall on the historical underspending. And this is reflected in the year-end audit transfer. So when a department underspends at the year-end, at the fiscal year-end, what the city would do is transfer funds out of one department to go to another department. And in FY22, BCYF transferred $3.6 million back to the general fund. In FY23, it was $3.8 million that was transferred back. In FY24, transferred out of it was $4.1 million. And that was, the FY24 budget was on a $26 million budget. And then in FY25 is a $30.8 million budget. But the budget is increasing to, the proposed budget for FY26 is $31.1 million. So my question is, we're going up again when there's a consistent pattern of transferring funds back to the general fund because of the lack of underspending.
Yeah, and actually when I was looking through my notes, I believe that's what Councilor Mejia was
Yes,
referencing when
that's what it
she
seems
talked
like.
about $4 million
Right.
that was transferred. It would have been funds that were not spent. And significant, if not all of that, would be personnel. That's the underspending for the hiring. The vacancies that we're not able to fill, as I've mentioned, because of either salaries or other criteria, mostly because of the salaries. And that is something that we've worked on over the last couple of years and will continue to work on, so that we're able to fill those vacancies.
Yeah. So if, when we're doing our process and looking at budget amendments, the city council will look at, funds that have historically been, departments or line items that have been historically underspent. So can you speak to any impact that would have if we were to, move money from BCYF, if any?
Yeah, so because of the lower paying position are the frontline staff, so we have programmatic and operational impact. So we're talking about cutting back on programs and cutting back on hours of operation if we don't have those positions. And, as Councilor Meehan noted, we're currently filling that with overtime. It's not how we want to approach it, but we have made, just in a short time, significant progress in filling those vacancies. But they would have significant programmatic and operational impacts if we don't have those positions.
Right. Even though at the end of the year, they will be transferred out, right? Because historically, the funds are being transferred out at the end of the year, and it doesn't sound like it impacts the programming or hiring because it's not happening at the rate that that we probably would like it for happen at because of, whether it's the pay rate, whether it's the process. Just wanted to, highlight that, and then just point to, like, when we're looking at budgets and line items, we look at historical underspending in budgets, and if there's like a strategy, is there a strategy, or there's like a certain amount of positions, whether it's like the maintenance positions or youth workers, is there a strategy to, make sure that we're hiring? I don't know how many vacant positions. I could probably pull it up. Is there like a real intentional strategy to hire more people at BCYF to fill those vacancy numbers?
Yeah, I would say from the operations team, my team spends significant amount of time going through the hiring process and trying to get individuals into our network regularly. I mean, if it's not daily, every other day they're in interviews, multiple interviews to try to fill these positions. As the commissioner has highlighted, even some of the employees that we currently have are working more than one job. The schedules are not 1 to 9 p.m. It's not the easiest thing to fill. We have a lot of no-shows. We have individuals who will accept the position, and it takes a significant amount of time. We've focused on reducing the amount of time it takes to fill them, but overall, when it comes to the salaries, the commitment, it's just been tough. So we are actively pursuing any applicant that would like to come to our network that meets the qualifications for the position and trying to get their foot in the door as soon as possible. But the logistics of day-to-day life, along with the benefits of the position, have been hard to balance for many people. And we're looking forward to the assessment of our positions and the salaries that are allocated to those positions to make them more attractive in the future. And I think with the work that all of our frontline staff do, they very much deserve that. Their commitment to the city of Boston, I think, is one of the, we're lucky. We're a very lucky department to have people who will sacrifice to make sure that the kids and youth and family will be, properly, I'm one of those kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
The commissioner is too. To give them a chance to be able to sit here at a table and talk in front of the city council at some point. So.
And to your point, Councilor, so particularly in this current budget reality, we're not going to be able to have a department-wide salary study. So working closely with Office of Human Resources as well as with the Budget Office to identify what are those positions. And as you mentioned, if the vacancies and the hardest to fill positions and the ones that would have the greatest impact and that we have the greatest need for are those youth workers and athletic staff, then we're going to work with them to identify those positions as let's do a salary study of those positions first.
Right.
So that's the strategy, or part of the strategy. The other one is to continue to do the outreach, to work with the people cabinet around, promotion of the positions, and try to cut back on that OT.
Right.
I also just say, most of the internal hires that we've had, and the commissioner highlighted yesterday, was that you're seeing some vacancies, but that's because we're taking talent that's been developed in our network and putting them into higher tier positions to lead, this department into the future. And we're not just looking out we're also looking in to ensure that if we have somebody we believe is the best fit, we will move them into that position. Obviously, that leaves a vacancy for us to fill after, but it gives, for many years, and we heard it from our staff, they didn't feel like there was upward progression, and we've taken that very seriously, and looking at holistically the entirety of our staff to give them the opportunities to feel heard and to feel that they could continue to service the city at a salary that could afford them to take care of their own families.
Yeah, no, and thank you for that. I know it's a multi-year plan. Things don't happen overnight, and I do value the work of our BCYF centers and the people who work in it because after-school programming and summer program means so much to me, and it's why I did somewhat okay in school. I'll now go back to Councilor Braden. Councilor, you have the floor.
I'm still here. Thank you. I think, Mr. Chair, we've had these conversations about retention and recruitment and retention, and career development paths, and I think it's a problem across the whole enterprise of the City of Boston. We talked about it in ISD yesterday in the conversation with ISD. Recruiting and training and then developing our staff so that they sacrifice for us, but what are we doing to develop their career paths and keep them here? And reimbursement for their work is one thing, but I think even just looking at, we have a very cumbersome hiring practice. I think it was instituted to be so cumbersome way back when they scrutinized every single hire way back in the financial crisis of 2008 perhaps, so you're going back a bit. But people walk out, people with all the new technology, people expect to get an offer of a job much quicker than 3 or 4 weeks, and sometimes they're not even getting a call back from our, in the city. They apply for a job and never hear from, So I think, and I'm saying you're not calling your people back, but I think that, we need to really push to have a deep dive into our hiring practices and the protocols that we have for onboarding people, because in the time that it takes to hire somebody, they've gone and got another job. It sort of almost sends a message that we don't really care and we're not that interested if they don't take the job or not. So, and it's not a criticism of you folks because you're desperately trying to fill your situations as well. So I think that's probably a piece of work we need to get into going forward. It's more of a comment than a question. I had a question for Kristen about the childcare survey with the annual city census. How good a return do you get on that? What percentage of returns do we get, and what sort of really good, do we get good information from that?
So we get good information. We don't get the return that we want. In the past, we've put it out with the city census. And this year, we're going to actually do it differently, because last year when we did it, the city census also went online. But the child care census went to one place, and the elections survey went to a different link.
Yeah.
And so we think that caused some of the decrease. So this year what we're going to do is set a particular set of months that we're going to do it. I think we're going to start in September to redo it. Only do it through our partners, so working with the Boston Family Engagement Network, working with our schools and Boston Pre-K. The other challenge is because the elections rolls out from January to August, it was hard to get our partners to help us amplify it because you never knew who had the documents when.
Yeah.
And so I think this will result in a better return. We've seen some uptick across neighborhoods. The initial year we received about 3,000, but it's declined since then, and so isn't as representative of the number of families as we would like it to be.
The libraries might also be able to help put that
Yes.
out. Yeah. And then just in terms of outcomes, the pre-K, I'm hoping that we'll see an uptick in improvement in our literacy levels because we're getting more kids into quality early education. Are we monitoring that, or how's that going? I know it's a bit early. How this is our third year. second year?
So this is our fifth year.
Fifth year?
But we've grown from 250 to 1,500.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the growth. There is actually a study that is done in partnership with the University of Michigan. And I actually don't know when the next set of results are going to be released. But we do have a special evaluation partnership with them, and I can email that link to you.
That'd be great, yeah. Because that early literacy and numeracy and just readiness skills for being able to go into first grade is really important. Let's see. I think I may be finished. I may have finished my list of questions. Oh, one more thing, back to the cooling centres again. So the plan is this summer, the Veronica Smith is probably going to function as a place for elders, especially. They'll go there anyway. Will the Jackson Man be a cooling centre if need be? Yeah. And is the HVAC system up to scratch to make it cooler than outside?
As of today, yes, it is. So
Okay, fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. One thing that we noticed in the last few years is that when the notice of the cooling centres goes out, that we don't necessarily have a notice to say doesn't usually include Alston Brighton this last few years, and then we have to try and use social media, etc., to get the word out that okay, it's really hot. You can go to the Jackson Man or wherever. Can we make sure that they're on the list? I think it's just there was so much uncertainty in the last few years about whether the building was open or not and what was happening. And
There were also issues with the HVAC, so it's sending
yeah.
people to a
Yes,
site that was not cool would not.
Yeah, that's right. And then having a HVAC system that doesn't
You
work.
want to make sure that a cooling center is actually cool.
Yeah. And one question we often get is, are you able to bring your pets to the cooling centre?
I don't believe I've got that question before, but yeah, it's a public building. I mean, if there was ever a scenario, an emergency scenario, especially if there was like a catastrophic utility failure, part of the plans are to ensure that not only the individuals who are affected by that, but their animals, their loved ones are also accounted for, especially if it's a long-term scenario. So, and I just want, like, the cooling centers, if a community center is open, whether or not it's on that list and the HVAC is functional, like, you're welcome.
You're just welcome to go in and
if you're not feeling, if you're under heat stroke and you have a dog with you, please come into the center. We will figure it out.
The interesting thing we had last year was Juneteenth. Everything was closed. The schools were closed, the community centres were closed, the libraries were closed, and it was going up towards 100 degrees. And I talked to Director Bach at VHA, and she was they were scrambling to find misting tents and all the rest. I think it was an all hands on deck trying to figure out what to do. But, if we anticipate a really hot day on a public holiday like Juneteenth, is there a way that we can identify spaces that would be open, or is that reasonable, or is it just you won't expect it? It's hard to predict what the utility would be if folks don't turn up to use the space.
Yeah, and I would say any day, especially during that period, as long as we are open and operational, and if there is a need and we're not operational, it would be something that we would use overtime or other aspects to ensure that the facility is open to meet that need.
Yeah.
I would say that if you do come with an animal, you're not going to necessarily be able to go around the entire site. We probably have a designated area for you, but at that time, again, it's a constant communication with the emergency response team here at the city to assess, is it at that level, who is open, who isn't open, and whether or not, we're going to make operational decisions to ensure that we're open either for longer hours or just to have the facility thing.
So, Council, we take our instruction and lead from the Office of Emergency Management on that. So we work with the mayor's office to make those calls.
Good, excellent. And, we're just seeing more of these things, and hopefully we'll not have too many of these events this summer again. It's very dangerous time for elders and little kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Braden. Just want to acknowledge that Councilor Durkin has joined us. Councilor Durkin, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I don't want to belabor any of the points that my colleagues have made, and apologize for my lateness. I just wanted to highlight, I know BCYF is such an important, the BCYF Center, we have the Tobin, is such an important part of our community in Mission Hill. And there are a couple of crosswalks in Mission Hill that I think people are using in order, or sorry, non-crosswalks, crosswalks that need to exist, of places where people are crossing outside of the Tobin that really do need, I think, the support of sort of some advocacy from BCYF. Right now, there's a non-crosswalk outside the Tobin that I think really does need to exist. So that's something I put in my budget letter, and I just want to flag that for you all. I know that I'll take that up with the Streets Cabinet, and I know the administration's working on a response to my budget letter, so I'm sure I'll get a response soon on that. But it's just really important that anyone traveling to the center is, able to get there safely. And there's been some crashes outside of the BCYF Center and outside of the Roxbury Crossing T Station, where there's sort of like this natural desire line. And so that's some of my budget priorities for Mission Hill, is just to make sure that those two crosswalks exist. Because when we're talking about kids and we're talking about like families and the elderly and everyone who uses a community center, I think that's a really important thing. And I just want to, I have talked briefly with Age Strong about this, but obviously Age Strong is located at the Tobin. We have some seniors who have had difficulty getting taxi vouchers at the Tobin, and I know that's something that they are literally coming to the Tobin for, and oftentimes, they're coming during business hours, and they're being told. So I'm going to take that up with Age Strong, but just want to flag, obviously, it's about the whole neighborhood, the whole community, and what people use the community center for. So just wanted to flag that. I have flagged that for Age Strong, but I do want to make sure that everything that we're able to do in this building, we also are able to do in any satellite location, including at the BCYF centers. And I just wanted to ask Kristen McSwain, thank you for all of your leadership. Can you talk about any partnerships that you guys have with non-sort of City of Boston schools? And I know there's a lot of early ed leaders in the city that are sort of at non-Boston schools, and sort of how those partnerships are going. And obviously in District 8 we only have one K through 8, so many of my constituents' kids are going to non-Boston schools. So just wanted to ask about sort of those partnerships.
Sure. So there's two different types of partnerships. One is actually through the Boston Pre-K program. So there's 53 organizations that we have relationships with who run Boston Pre-K for us that are not Boston Public Schools. 37 of them are what you would traditionally think of as a child care center. 8 of them are independent schools, and then 11 of them are family child care providers. So there's that piece where we're working directly with them on implementing the Boston Pre-K program. So we pay for a bachelor's level teacher. They agree to coaching and monitoring and development support. They agree to do family engagement along a certain set of criteria. If they are not licensed, because an independent school is not required to be licensed for childcare, we require them to get licensed and accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and they have to use the BPS curriculum. So there's sort of that bucket of work and how we work with them. But we actually also, in my office, that I do in partnership with BPS, but then in my office, we work directly with all of the child care centers and family child care in the city. We offer for both of them business training as well as coaching and support. Particularly for centers, we've been focused on transition of leadership. So a lot of our center directors are older. They're my age and older, and some of us are looking at retirement in the next 10, 15 years. So what's their transition plan? Do they have one? How are they thinking about that? as well as how are they thinking about recruiting staff? Because for a long time, child care centers have really focused on recruiting families, and that's important work, but you can't have families if you don't have staff, and that is a piece that traditionally hasn't been done. So we're doing that kind of training and technical assistance with them. And then some of the programs that I talked about earlier in terms of heat and biking and gardening, we've also been doing with folks as they desire to participate. And then the last thing is that we will routinely host town hall meetings with them, sometimes on topics that they've brought up and sometimes on topics that we feel are important. So we're doing one with Boston Public Health Commission around measles and vaccination. We've done it around respiratory illness in the winter, everything from COVID to RSV. So the touch points with that community really depends on what they need. And then, I take a lot of calls about how to maneuver through ISD and through the licensing process at the state. So it just really depends.
No, thank you so much for your answer, and that's really helpful. I'm running out of time, so I do want to just, and I know, Commissioner Rivera, I know we've talked about this a lot. Obviously, the goal for the Tobin is for it to be fully wheelchair accessible. There have been a couple instances this year where people haven't exactly known where to get inside the Tobin. So I was just curious if there was any plan for additional signage just to let people know, like, how to get to where they can get in. And I know, obviously, we can't always, predict when things are going to malfunction. So, but I just would like to add my voice to advocate for those with disabilities and just making sure that they can get into the Tobin in a way that really values their mobility challenges. And I do think that it's really important that we get some signage if there already isn't signage, just so that people know exactly where to enter.
Yeah, so we can get and add additional signage, happy to do that. So I did hear from someone just this week as well, so we'll address that. And then, the longer term, right, not going to solve this problem now. The longer term is there's a capital project in the works along with several other, at least 2 other capital projects at the Tobin, to add a ramp where someone would be able to not require an assistive device, either the lift or have to buzz someone in. So that's in the works.
And I've already belabored the AC. I think we're getting it. I think we're on the right track, so I don't think I need to talk about that. But I just want to thank you for all of your leadership, and obviously being someone who is from Mission Hill, you get it, and you are absolutely advocating, and I'm just grateful for your leadership. Thank you to you both as well, for everything that you do. And again, I don't want to keep everyone because I know I had to show up to this late. So thank you for everything that you do, and I'll ask any other questions through and the RFI. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you. Just maybe 3 more questions, all centered around the Office of Early Childhood. Director Mitchell, could you give us an update on the Children's Council model?
Sure. So our Children's Council has representatives from 17 different cabinets and departments, and it includes everyone from the commissioner to the superintendent, the head of human services, the commissioner of police. So it's just a wide range, but everyone who touches families and young people. And we're really focused on doing 3 things. One is making sure that before we develop policies, initiatives, and programs, that we're talking amongst one another and aligning those, sharing our best thinking. I think you've heard today in the testimony that we're doing a lot of cross-departmental and cross-cabinet partnerships in order to make sure that we're leveraging all of our assets. So that's really one purpose of the council. The second is to make sure that the things that we are actually creating touch our residents. Sometimes we've found that when we go out and talk to residents about a program we're really proud of, they don't know about it. And so how do we close that gap? What are the lessons that we can learn from each other, and how can we leverage each other to be able to share the really great things that we're doing every day on behalf of and with residents. And then the last thing is to move forward some priority initiatives of the administration. So one we already talked about is Connect, Learn, Explore. The second is our intersection of extreme heat in young children. And then the last is really thinking about how we can be working in neighborhoods and bringing together our community hub schools, which are really focused in BPS, with a place-based initiative that supports the work that's happening in our schools, but also the kids in the neighborhood who don't go to our schools or who go to a school in a different part of town, since we don't have neighborhood schools. And we started that work in Mattapan and have been, we're now having our third meeting later this month to really think about what it would look like to set some goals and have a team of people prioritizing neighborhood goals, and then how we can replicate that across the city.
Awesome. No, great initiative, and looking forward to hearing what transpires out of the conversations in Mattapan. One of the things that I have advocated for in the past, and you're well aware of this, is increasing or taking a look at our public spaces to see if those public spaces can be spaces where we offer childcare. I think this is a way that we can control rent for those childcare centers, and then it's also a way to increase the capacity, right? If we have a larger space, my son goes to a family friend's childcare, and it's, to your point, there's only 8 students, and we know how big the demand is. So I think sometimes, maybe we can look inward to identify spaces, or when we're building new spaces, putting a portion of that new building aside for childcare. What are your thoughts? Is there any strategy around, as we're merging schools, new buildings come online? Are we trying to identify places where we can offer lower rent to our childcare providers to meet this demand?
So I think we're doing a couple of things, particularly with the BPS long-term facilities plan. One is with the reconfigurations of schools. So schools that are moving from K-8, they are moving to pre-K 6. So as a way of really thinking about our 3- and 4-year-olds, how are we expanding K0, K1? In the last 5 years, all of the expansion we talked about in Boston Pre-K was actually in our community-based setting. We have not, by and large, done expansion in BPS. So part of the plan now is to really look at what are we going to be expanding in BPS, what are we going to be expanding in the community-based setting, and how does that align with what we know about parent choice and need? So that's sort of one piece that's happening with the reconfigurations. As we look at closures and mergers of buildings, and as we're taking some of those buildings offline, we're looking at them, first of all, in terms of educational use. So as we are upgrading buildings, we need places for school communities to go. But the next educational use, remembering that educational use is our first priority, is to be thinking about those kinds of questions you just asked. Are there buildings that might actually make a really good child care center? So that's part of the calculus. I think you're not going to see it in the near future because we're still really thinking about the school communities that are in buildings that might need swing space as we're renovating some of our other buildings. So it is one of the things that's on the list of considerations. It's not on the right now list of considerations because of some of the space constraints we have around renovations and other types of things. But it's definitely part of the mix.
Thank you. Well, again, thank everyone on the panel for all your hard work for the City of Boston, and to your entire team. I want to thank central staff, my colleagues, also my team, and those who came to give public testimony. This hearing on dockets number 0822 through 0830 is adjourned.